He's laying there on the couch relaxing. His friends were shooting pool. The ladies were dancing. Everybody's having a good time, just finishing up from a barbecue. And then he looked up at his killer and said, "What's this all about?" His killer looked down. "Now I'm going to put you up on game." Boom! Killed him right there on the couch. I'm Dan Stover, a retired Chicago homicide detective. 33 years on the job, 22 of those in homicide. These are real cases told from my perspective. It was April of 2008, 76th and Rhodes, 7607 Rhodes to be precise. We got the call. My partner and I, we proceeded to the scene. There were police everywhere. Yellow crime scene tape, red crime scene tape. Scene was located inside the residence. It was an open floor plan. So in other words, when you walk in the front or the back door, it was open. It was actually a nice place. So before going into the scene, I waited for the forensic investigators to go in to minimize how many people were going inside the scene. I had learned that there were 5 executed bodies inside this place. Put on our paper suits, our hairnets, our booties, and we carefully entered the scene. And that's when I observed the carnage. Came in through the back door. There's no signs of forced entry. First person I seen was a young lady named Whitney Flowers. Up against the wall, down onto the floor, apparent gunshot wound to the head. Then I looked over onto the couch. So the couch, there was a couple like love seats couch that faced a television in the corner of the room. There's a pool table. Like I said, it's an open floor plan. And I seen a person on the floor next to the couch who I learned was Donovan Richardson. These kids were all in their early 20s. 20s, maybe a little bit older, some of them. Like I said, there were 5. Don Richardson, gunshot wound to the head. Moving along, I see another young man, Anthony Scales, Reginald Walker. It's a hard one to talk about. I could still smell it in the air inside this place. The eerie quiet. My partner and I handled the scene. I was there, and I remember it to this day. It sticks with you. Around the corner, at the base of the staircase to go up to the second floor, I see another young lady, gunshot wound. Everybody's gunshot wounds to the head. They were executed. Her name was Lakeisha Dawson. We carefully walked through the scene, I along with the forensic investigators, identifying, photographing, videotaping the scene, marking evidence before collection. We proceeded up the stairs to the second floor, which is where the bedrooms were located. When you get to the top of the stairs, there's a short hallway, a bedroom to the left, a bathroom to the straight ahead, and another bedroom to the right. I noticed that the access panel to the attic was open, so somebody had been up in that attic. So they got up. What we learned later and through the investigation was one boosted the other to get up, move the panel, and take a look up there. What they're in there looking for was a lot of money, anything of value. This is back, like I said, in 2008 when flat screen TVs were pretty new and they were expensive. So I noticed that the brackets on the walls where the TVs were gone, ripped off the wall. It was very apparent that this house had been ransacked. There wasn't anything that wasn't overturned, opened, nothing. Turned out the offenders were in there for about 3 hours searching this place after they executed the 5. There's two men that did this slaughter. Michael King and Toralon Williams. They're both in the Department of Corrections in Illinois, serving the rest of their life for what they did. Proceeded back down, go into the basement, down a set of stairs from the kitchen to the basement. Get down there and there's a huge pool of blood on the floor. Looks like there's another crime scene. I look up and the blood is leaking through the floorboards. Hardwood floorboards is leaking down onto the floor. Coagulated, just a pool of blood. I noticed that all the insulation in this basement was ripped from the walls. So it was just studs with the insulation attached. Well, they had ripped it all out. Anything that was down there, they flipped it, opened it, went through it. And after that, we proceeded back up. We exited that scene, went into the Chicago Police Department command van, where I briefed the command staff who was awaiting the hear of the incident inside. The forensic investigators put on the video so everybody could see, and at that time it was Jody Weiss was the superintendent of police. And I'll never forget, I looked at Mr. Weiss and I could see in his eyes that he was just stunned at what he was looking at, as were most of the command staff that were watching this. And it's not every day you have 5 that are executed in one incident. So after we apprised them of the situation, showed them everything we had, we returned back with the forensic investigators, new paper suit, new footies, new hairnets, new rubber gloves, and we proceeded to go back in. And now we were going to recover each of the bodies. Of course, after photographs and everything like that, the hands were bagged. If you don't know what that means, it's basically paper bags put on their hands in case they were fighting. If there's any kind of evidence that could be located, maybe under fingernails on their hands, whatever. So we bagged their hands. We put each of the bodies after the photographs. We put each of the bodies into a body bag, and they were separately transported to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office for autopsy that following morning. We spent hours inside the residence looking for evidence. Like I said, we noted that TVs were ripped down. Don Richardson's room upstairs, the bed was overturned. All the beds were overturned. Closet ransacked. There's an open safe. Like I said, it's very apparent that they were searching. We also noticed that jewelry had been taken from the bodies of these victims. Watches, diamond cube earrings, you name it, necklaces, taken from these dead bodies. So we had to do a lot of interviews with this. It turned out that the young ladies, they danced for a living at a gentleman's club. We had to go, we had to talk to people, we had to eliminate any kind of lead that, there's a lot of bogus leads coming in. For why people would do that, I don't know, but they do. But it's something that we have to run down. The investigation took us about 3 months to solve. And we worked it every day, my partner and I. My partner, Tim Murphy. We worked it every day. And then finally, one day a phone call came into the office, and our sergeant answered the call, and it was a young man that said that he had a conversation with a guy known as Torline Williams, and Torline was trying to sell him a watch. And he described that watch, and he said that Torline was bragging about he and his guys did that murder. It was all over the news. It was world news. And he said, you might want to look at this guy. And like I said, we had been getting a lot of tips coming in, but this one had details that either this young man that made the phone call was involved, or the information he was providing us was accurate. So we ended up talking to that witness. I'm not going to mention his name for purposes of this video, but let's say God bless him for doing the right thing. His information led us to this Torline Williams. Torline was getting ready to leave for Army basic training. His girlfriend just had a brand new baby at Northwestern Hospital, and he was at the hospital. Our intelligence led us to Northwestern Hospital, where he was located, and he was placed under arrest for further investigation. He's taken to Area 2 Detective Division. That's where I worked out of, on the far south side of Chicago. And he was questioned. And then later during questioning, he told us, okay, I was there, I didn't pull the trigger. So the questioning went on, the interrogation went on, and ultimately Torline gave pretty much a self-serving confession. And he implicated another young man named Michael King and another young man named Arthur Brown. Said Arthur Brown was just the driver. Michael King was another shooter. Now, these guys didn't have much of a background at all. You would think to be able to execute 5 people, 2 women and 3 men, you would think that they would have an extensive background. They didn't. The victims in this case didn't, neither did the offenders. As we went on, we started investigating, looking into this Michael King, into this Arthur Brown. And we were able to put together their whereabouts, and we discovered that Michael King was in custody of the Cook County Jail for an unrelated matter, and he checked himself in, gave to the police a fictitious name, Jared Brooks. So every day, my partner Tim Murphy was fantastic with research and computer stuff and doing background stuff. He was fantastic with it. And he ran what's called a SID number, a state ID number. So when you can give a fake name, but when you're booked and you're fingerprinted, that you're issued an FBI number and a SID number. Well, the SID number, every morning my partner would check. Come into work, he would check that SID number. Boom. He's in custody under Jared Brooks in the county jail. Let's prepare the paperwork, and we did what we call a writ to get him out of custody, out of their custody. We take him into our custody for further investigation at Detective Area 2. He too confesses during interrogation. And what he confesses to, which a lot of it, both of these guys it's self-serving. This one did that, and that one did this, and but we see through the bullshit. And based on the physical evidence, we put 2 and 2 together, and we figure out exactly who did what. The third guy, Arthur Brown, he was supervisor at United Postal Service in Hodgkins, Illinois. And Arthur Brown had his car seized by police about, I don't know, maybe a month before the murders. And he, all for a roach, a small amount of marijuana in his ashtray. So combination, Arthur wanted to get some money, and he also wanted to buy some weed. On the night of the murders, he meets up with them, and they tell him, you'll get all the money you need. All you got to do is just wait for us and help us. You know, we're going to go do this stain. The infamous stain or lick. That's what they always would say that, and it's supposed to be easy. So all you got to do is come, hang out, and when we give you the call on the phone, you come into the alley, and away we go. And then you'll be able to get money. We're going to rob these guys. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Easy. Well, let me back up. The backstory on this is about a month before the murders. Like I said, this is the 22nd into the 23rd of April of 2008. About a month before the murders, Michael King, who knows Donovan Richardson, the number one victim in this case, Torlin's looking to sell a Jesus medallion, about like this size. It's a Jesus face on a gold necklace. He says, man, I want to sell this. I need some money. I got to get some money. And Michael King tells him, oh, man, my buddy Don P., he goes, he buys stuff like that. He's got a lot of stuff. He goes, come on, I'll introduce you to him, and maybe he'll buy it. So they go over to the house. Don opens the door. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Come on in. Torlin's looking. Wow, man, it's a nice place. And he's got nice TVs. He's very flashy. Don Richardson was what they call a pimp. And the two young ladies supposedly worked for him. They were dancers at the club. But that's how he made his money. So he says, man, you're doing pretty good up in here. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, I want to get rid of this medallion Jesus face. Would you be interested in buying it? And he says, he hands it to Don Richardson. Don looks at it and goes, man, this ain't nothing. He goes, let me show you something. I'm going to put you up on game. Torlin says, oh, you're going to put me up on game, huh? He goes up and he comes down with a big medallion. Don P., gold, diamonds, huge. He says, here, I'm going to put you up on game. This is what I'm about. He goes, your little medallion there? I ain't interested in that. With that, Torlin felt disrespected. You're going to put me up on game, huh? Okay. They stay for a little bit longer and they leave. When they leave, Torlin and Michael King hatched this plan to rob Don P. So they actually do like surveillance on the house, hiding out across the street in camouflage from a vacant lot. It's crazy. But anyway, now the night of the murder, they go, and that day they had a barbecue. Don had a barbecue at the house, and there was quite a few people that were there, which again, we had to interview all of them to eliminate them as a suspect. It's part of our job. That's what we have to do. But anyway, a lot of people, well, the night is starting to come to an end. And everybody's left except for Whitney Flowers, Lakeisha Dawson, Don Richardson, Reggie Walker, and Anthony Scales. So Don at this point is tired. He's laying on the couch. And like I said, this open floor plan, just past the couch where he's laying watching TV in the corner is a bathroom. He's laying there. One of the guys opens the door. Hey, come on in. Hey, blah, blah, blah. With that, Torlin goes to the bathroom. Michael King's over by the front door, small talking with the guys. The ladies are dancing. Torline Williams comes out of the bathroom. As soon as he steps out of that bathroom, he turns, he looks down at Don P. on the couch with his head on the headset. Don P. looks, and Torline puts a gun in his face. Don's like, what's this all about? Now I'm going to put you up on game. Pow! Blows his brains out. Now everybody's stunned. Everybody except Michael King. He's in on this now. Everybody down. Everybody down. One of the guys resists. They go up, bust his teeth out of his head with the gun. He goes down. Now they're shooting. Boom. Boom. They're going to each of these people. Whitney Flowers, the girl right across from the bathroom against the wall. She's begging. Please, please, please. She's on her knees and she puts her hands up like this. Please. He looks right down. Shut up, bitch. And this is Michael King. Shut up, bitch. Boom. Lakeisha Doss is trying to slither up the stairs to get upstairs. Probably figures maybe there's a gun up there, jump out the window, whatever, because she sees what's going on. Michael runs over, looks up the stairwell. Where are you going? Get down here, bitch. She comes down. She's begging as she's coming down the stairs. Please, please. Gets to the bottom of the stairs, onto her knees. Boom. In the head. The other guys, they get executed too. Now there's five dead bodies in this house. Over what? Over what? Disrespect? Greed because you want his TVs and his jewelry? Come on. But anyway, that's what happened. So they're in this house, like I said, for about 3 hours. And they end up, now it's time to leave. They policed up their brass, at least what they thought they got all the brass, but they didn't realize when they tossed Don Richardson down they rolled him off the couch, taking his earrings, taking jewelry, his watch. They rolled him onto a shell case. So there was a couple of the bodies that were laying on top of fired cartridge cases, which we recovered. But they used rubber gloves. They policed up most of their brass. They left very little behind. It was almost like professionally done. Now they open up the back door, call Arthur Brown. Arthur comes down to the car waiting there in the alley, and they start carrying stuff out, passing it to Arthur to put into the car. Well, a neighbor next door sees this because she hears a lot of racket going on, and now she sees them coming out carrying stuff. We later interviewed her, and she turned out to be very good for the prosecution. But so they're carrying this stuff, they're passing it over the gate to Arthur, who's loading it up. They get it all in there, they jump in the car, and Arthur's going to drive, and away they go. And now they're like, man, that shit was crazy. Well, Arthur Brown, during his interrogation, he told us that he didn't know they were going to execute. And I believe him. He didn't know they were going to execute 5. He thought it was just a robbery. But based on him partaking in this, in the way of knowing what they were going to do as far as a robbery, a violent crime, then helping remove the items from the house. Then we got Arthur going to different pawn shops the next morning, selling this stuff. And he tells us during his interrogation that, well, now it's all over the news, and I realize what they did. Oh, my God, they killed these 5. But what does Arthur Brown do? Arthur says, well, I'm not going to say nothing. He goes and starts pawning stuff off, selling TVs to people he knew, family members, to get his money. so he can get his car out. Huge mistake. Huge mistake, Arthur. This kid threw his life right down the drain over a little greed. Stupid. Anyway, we recover most of the items. Recover gun. Recover a couple guns. A lot of the jewelry, which was identified by family members. It's all put in the inventory, and then eventually was used at court for trial. Arthur Brown made a deal with the state to testify in exchange for 24 years in the Department of Corrections. And he did it. He's still doing his time. Michael King, Torlon Williams selected a jury of their peers. We went to trial. I testified. And they were both found guilty by the jury, and they're doing life, multiple lives in the Illinois Department of Corrections, as they should be. This case was, like I said in the beginning, this case stuck with me, and it still sticks with me to this day, and this is 2025. You smell it, the eerie quiet. There's nothing like it. And it's a shame that those people's lives ended that